Welcome to Podomation, where we talk about all things automation and industrial cybersecurity. Podomation is brought to you by ISA, the International Society of Automation.
Welcome to Podomation. I'm Morgan Four, and in this episode, we'll jump to day 2 of ISA's OT Cybersecurity Summit in Prague. We started part 2 of the conference with the Compliance to Execution, Navigating NIS2 and the Cyber Resilience Act Forum. Our expert panel examined what these regulations mean in practice, discussing governance, product security, supply chain resilience, and how organizations and asset-intensive industries are moving beyond compliance to build lasting cyber resilience. Then we moved to our keynote presented by Mark Harbord, Chief Information Security Officer of the UK Parliament, who explored how Europe's evolving cyber threat landscape is driving new legislation, including NIS2, the Cyber Resilience Act, and the EU AI Act. You don't want to miss these key directional insights. Check it out.
So we've got a great panel of experts here. We've got experts from policymaker side, the product side. We've got asset owners and experts in implementation. So we're going to get a full picture from the regulation side to the implementation to the execution. So without further ado, I'm going to allow the panelists here to introduce themselves. We're going to start with Lukasz here.
Okay, my name is Lukasz Kister. I'm working for Honeywell. I'm a product cybersecurity director, and on the other side, I'm an expert in the European Commission, the s.r.o. Expert group with the Senelec as an expert to develop the harmonized standard for s.r.o. So I'm happy to share with you some news from this area, how to go through this process to be ready before December 11, 2027, and be able to sell your product in Europe. Thank you.
Lukasz, yes. And next, I'm going to ask Martin to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thank you, Martin Bartel. I'm working at Bosch, corporate governance for cybersecurity for all the production facilities. And basically, I'm doing a lot of regulation stuff, screening it through standards, putting it into services and, let's say, actionable procedures. So that's my job. And Europe is a huge market for us, of course, also from facility side. So I'm looking forward in exchanging, especially here, because s.r.o. is more European focused, but it will have a worldwide impact, I guess. So let's see about that.
Thank you, Martin. And Ilja.
Thank you. My name is David Ilja. The past experience from Nestlé. At the time, I led 130 factories implementing at the time the OT architectures, the DNV, oil rigs, all kinds of vessels, Airbus Defense and Space. What I did there is a secret. And currently leading Iron OT, a progressive top-class OT security company based here in Czech Republic, also ISA Czech and Slovakia. And as part of my PhD, I'm developing a new OT security architecture model, which might be an alternative to zones and conduits model. My work and everything is like exactly from practice. So I'm helping to implement all these directives in the field and having the hands dirty, with positive and negative implementations. So exactly the feedback, exact real feedback from practice. This is something what I can offer.
Excellent. Thank you, Ilja. And last, Peter.
And good morning. My name is Petr Kopřiva. I currently work for BDO as a cybersecurity consultant / auditor. I spent the last 6 years working for National Cyber Information Security Agency in Czechia. Was responsible for IT suppliers regulation and also involved in an IS2 directive implementation in Czech law. I'm a lawyer by education, so I will not go in detail as other guys, but hopefully it will work.
Well, thank you, everyone. Great panelists, as you can hear. So I'm going to open the conversation by asking Lukasz, tell us a little bit about NIS2 and CRA. In particular, what's the most common misconception organizations have about those two sets of regulations?
Okay, this is the critical misconception. It's always the same, that those are two separate regulations. One is the NIS2 is related to the operators. They have to be prepared. They have to protect their systems. They have to protect their critical operations, essential services, and so on and so forth. This is mostly related to IT, OT security in a real everyday operation. The CRA is the product-related regulation, which regulated not the end users, not all the other aspects, but it's related directly for manufacturers of the digital products. So this is very comprehensive act which will cover all the necessary aspects our product have to meet to be able to sell them in the European market, to be as secure as possible. So those are really product and manufacturer related requirements, obligations, but not only related to the product security properties. And we have to understand this, that CRA is not only, okay, you have to manufacture, you have to design, manufacture secure product. No, you have to create all the ecosystem from the secure development life cycle and all the other aspects related to the, but not life cycle which ends on the release date, because CRA cover entire product life cycle, from planning till the end of life. And we have to be prepared, because right now there is a lot of situation where we are using release and forgotten strategy. We are releasing products and okay, then customers have to take care of those products. And we are preparing for the next release, next version of this product. No, till the end of security support period, we have to define. We need to take care of our products. We need to handle all the vulnerabilities. We have to deliver security patches. We have to manage risk associated with this product. We have to report, and so on and so forth. So this is game changer for manufacturers, but not only for manufacturers. Even if this act is directly related to the product manufacturers, it will impact all the others, services and users, because this is the core elements I want to share at the beginning. We will have to deliver to you as end users product with secure by default configuration. So not all of your legacy system can use those products directly. So then maybe you have to downgrade our secure by default configuration. So who will be responsible for this risk? Not a manufacturer, because manufacturer defined this default configuration, defined all the, manage all the risk related to this configuration, to these properties of the product. So you have to protect your system. You have to manage the risk which are related to your legacy system. So this will impact operators as well, even more than manufacturers, because at the end we will create this product, prepare and deliver to you and manage per our knowledge how this product should be deployed and what you should do with this product.
Thank you, Lukasz. Following on from that last point you just made, Ilja, I want to ask you next. You've got a lot of experience in reviewing critical infrastructure and seeing how close they are to being compliant and secure. What do you say the real challenges will be for critical infrastructure to meet these new regulations?
Oh, right. So the biggest challenge is that we are humans, right? So it means that with all the positiveness and also with all the negativeness of typical human behavior, how it's called, Dunning-Kruger effect, it means that like the resistance of something new. This is what I'm facing. How it will be, right? Will European Union enforce some sanctions? Will someone check it? Maybe let's wait, right? Let's wait a bit, maybe nothing will happen, maybe there will come a new legislation afterwards, maybe things might change. So let's say this typical resistance for change. If you look technically, so what is the lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of who at the end, who read it? Who read NIS2? Okay, maybe it's not so comprehensive, but who read all SAEC standards, helping to implement it? Who read, all these directives? Who tried to understand that, right? Maybe sometimes from some video, sometimes from some discussion, but like the real understanding of the core problem is missing. And technically, asset visibility, they don't know what they have, right? How they can procure something what they don't know that they have. They cannot even understand the scale of issue, right? The headquarters are so much disconnected from the plants in large organizations, playing their diplomacy, their politics, internally, and the plants it's somewhere far away. And I see it in many, many organizations. So let's say cybersecurity and all this new legislation for me, it's a chance to change something, and through cybersecurity to do something good in our society, to do some order, but like a positive order things, help to organizations to understand better themselves, right? So this is what I see behind it. This is what I see behind it, and the challenge is that also others will understand that and will see that in the same way as I see it.
All right, thank you, yeah. Petr, you've had some experience here in Czech Republic with NIS2 implementation. Lukasz mentioned, that these NIS2 and s.r.o. different, but also obviously closely related. How do you see the experience with NIS2 impacting s.r.o. implementation?
Yeah, thank you. I'll start with some idea that I got recently. I see the attitude of organization towards implementing regulation. I can divide the organization into 3 categories. First one is those organizations that see the regulation as necessary evil. Those organizations will produce some abstract paperwork just to be in compliance. And I hope you are not among them. And regulators don't see that likely. The second category is organizations that see regulation as an opportunity. Opportunity to raise their cybersecurity standard, to raise awareness about cybersecurity in their organizations, especially in management, to gain some money, some resources for cybersecurity. And they see regulation as a guideline to raise the bar. And for them, the regulation is added value, and for them, the regulation is being written because no one is writing regulation just because they want to regulate someone. Regulators actually are people that want to help someone to invest their time in creating value, and that value is helping the organization to be more secure. And the third category for me would be organizations that are mature, with high maturity level in cybersecurity, usually big companies on the market for decades. and for them is just raising the bar for the whole market. So to set some standard for producing products and services, running the organization itself. So those are also the misconception of the regulation. And if I may add some thing that have CRA and IS2 directive in common, is risk-based approach. Many organizations see them as a checklist, that some requirements that need to be done, need to be fulfilled, and they see it like checkbox. It's not the right way how to do it. First of all, in IS2, in CRA, you need to start the work with risk assessment and then implementing the security measures. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So Martin, over to you. From your experience, what should boards and executive leaderships be doing to prepare for these new regulations?
No, that's an excellent question. I think they should neither underestimate nor overestimate them. But getting also to the point from Ilja, those legislative frameworks just issued, yeah, they are really huge. So what's happening is usually large corporations, medium ones, someone gets, yeah, take care of it. Do we have to do something, yes or no? And then, yeah, come back to me like next week, something like that, right? And I think what is different, it's complex and complicated. It's taking really some time. Sometimes you're already prepared and it's good, yeah, that's a good thing. But people should really assign proper people understanding it, capable of deriving what shall we do or what do we must do, yeah? And in terms of, if you give something like the NIS2 to people like me who love cybersecurity, we maybe, interpret certain things, oh look, we need firewalls, we need this and that, we need to purchase stuff, we need to adapt anything, everything is really bad. If you give that to a legal department, they would say, yeah, it's okay, we have nominated someone, we just provide a PowerPoint training to all the senior managers and we are basically done. So that's like the contrary, right? So what is different is, I think because of this complexity, you need to involve people, it's communication, so legal experts, and then really ask serious questions as senior management. Is that really required? Why do you come up with that solution or that requirement? And the tendency in all those papers, whether it's being NIS or in a CRA, is that's bureaucracy trying to put complicated things on paper with all different perspectives. That's why it's so long, yeah? What is missing is, and people then do it, yeah, they pump all those papers into large language models and ask it, what do I have to do? Yeah, something like that. I wouldn't trust that data, at least not in the long run. Yeah, you can do it for a quick insight. But it's really drilling down, finding the right people, and asking serious questions. Are we sure that we have to do that? And is that sufficient in terms of if you feel it's too small or too less you do? And in terms of, do we really have to do that? How do you come up with that? And that's so experts in cyber and experts in legal, because if we talk about those ones, those are legal documents. And I mean, one example, yeah, in Germany, we had to issue for any legal entity we operate certificates so that we have mailing addresses for the German government. That was like a nightmare, like we have 50 or 60 legal entities. It was completely crazy, but we had to do it. And we checked it, yeah, we said, can't do once? No, it was not possible. It was a web front end, manually, so.
Thank you, Martin. Picking up on that question you pointed about the effort required. So, Ilja, back to you. Do you think that organizations are underestimating the effort required, and where would they underestimate the effort in implementing?
Oh. They are underestimating the whole topic, whole cybersecurity. It's delegated to someone. This is a supplier-related issue, but you cannot hand over the work. You can hand over the work, but you cannot hand over the responsibility. So the whole topic is underestimated. There are enlightened organizations, also included enlightened organizations inside state, which is quite nice. But these are individuals. in general, the things are underestimated because it's like another compliance thing. We will do everything right, and then there will be something, in 2 years, and I don't know how it is outside of cybersecurity, if other topics are also implemented like that, but definitely cybersecurity in general is treated in that way. So the lack of understanding, a lack of preparedness, I fully agree. What was said here, it's delegated to someone internally, externally, to some role. He has 100 other areas. So in general, what needs to be done, open your eyes, wake up and do it, right? Maybe you will not do it properly on the beginning, but learning by doing, right? So this is something what I live in science fiction. As I was a newbie, young, to have such a comprehensive legislations, these transpositions in every European state, it does not even, it was not in my imagination. So we're living in some sort of science fiction, which becomes a reality. There is a cybersecurity act in every European country. We have covered products. Wow. For cybersecurity industry, this is it's amazing. Yes, some of them are complex, some transpositions are better than the others, Netherlands, Finland, who knows that they are quite exhaustively Spain. But the essence inside that is that it's here, and the aim is for good, to have a really secure society, secure organization. And this is something what it should be on the first place. It's helping us, to have a better world. It's clear as that. It's not a compliance issue or some side job, or to be compliant with the legislation of European Union. It is for us that we will be able to live, more secure inside our jobs, and also in home. And this should be on the first place and foremost all the time.
Thank you. Yeah. So a couple of things that Lukasz mentioned when he introduced us was cybersecurity by design and secure by default configuration. So Petr, can you tell us what do you think cyber security by design means?
Yeah, thanks. Security by design means that you are implementing the security, cybersecurity in this place from the beginning, from the designing of the product, designing of the service. If I may show that on an example, you are producing a car. You are producing a car without airbag. Then someone come and say, hey, that's not very secure for the passengers. Let's add something that will prevent the injuries of the passengers. So you are trying to implement that airbag into the car, not during the manufacturing process, during the designing of the car, but after that you are missing the space for the airbags, you are missing the sensors, and so on. So what will you do to make it safe? You will put some bubble foil on steering wheel. You you force the passengers to wear helmets. No. So you'll need to implement the security in the product, in the service from the beginning. And it's the same in OT. Every time you forget to implement something from the beginning, the solutions after are always worse, always some add-up layer, and that's usually not very secure, not very. It's expensive usually, and it's not the best approach.
All right, well, let's pass it back here to Lukasz, because the solution to that is to have these regulations which say these products need to be secure by default configuration. You already hinted at the problem here, which is that just because the product is secure by default doesn't mean it's going to be secure for real. And we all know in operational environments, we have a lot of problems with insecure protocols and insecure designs because of necessity. So what's that going to look like in the real world?
Yeah, this is one of the problems of understanding CRA. There is many problems with what is vulnerability, what we have to report, blah, blah, blah. And secure by default is the hot one right now, because many of the manufacturers, especially their engineering teams, they are asking for, give me a list of requirements I have to implement to be secure by default. There isn't, and there won't be any list of requirements. You have to define secure by default configuration for your product. You have to firstly understand your product, define this product security context, not per this product as something standalone, but where you define to implement, embedded this product into the larger system, and then define secure by default. So even if we don't want to use insecure by design protocols, it doesn't mean that you have to delete those protocols from your product. You have to deliver your product with specific configuration and then allow the users to do what is necessary for his system. Interoperability is one of the requirements from the CRA when you look at this act very deeply. So you have to deliver product which can be used in the end user environment. So secure by default means that you have to understand your product. In many manufacturers, I have a situation that they are assessing risks related to their product only from this product perspective. No. Product security context means that you have to understand where your product is deployed, how it's used, intended purpose, and what the user will do if they get your product, and they can do this without following your security manual. So you have to understand all the risks and then prepare for those risks. Okay, you cannot protect every single, as Ilja mentioned, user intentions or fantasy, but you have to inform them that you won't follow my security manual. Those are the risks. I inform you about those risks, but I cannot protect you on those risks. This is on your side to find the best measures to mitigate those risks if you don't want or cannot follow my security manual. So this is secure by default configuration. We are configuring our product for using the most possible protection for the product when we are delivering to the customer. But that's why this will be game changer not only for manufacturers, the CRA, but for the end user as well, as I mentioned before, and Martin and all the others. The CRA and the NIS2, this is the gate to the bridge. The gate will be open, but the bridge between manufacturers and end users to cooperate, to understand each other, to share the risks, to understand the risk related to the product and their deployment, especially in OT environment, because in the customer, so you are selling on the shelf, so it's not so easy to cooperate. But in our OT environment, we know who is the user. We know that this is the critical infrastructure. So we have to be prepared to cooperate in deployment, firstly in design, then in deployment, and then cooperate with managing all the risks, because the critical infrastructure operator, essential services operator, is responsible for managing their risk and the vulnerabilities from the NIS2 perspective. We are responsible from the CRA perspective. So we have to collaborate to discuss about those risks and understand those risks, because what we are thinking about the vulnerability in our product, maybe it's not a vulnerability in the place where this product is deployed. Maybe there is no connection to the internet, so what are the risks for our product if this is a vulnerability which can be used only via direct connection to the internet? So the secure by default is not a rocket science. It's about understanding our product and its environment and the end user network.
Thank you, Lukasz. So Martin, even before we have these regulations, what do you see today the most common implementation gaps in organizations?
Well, I think that's quite simple. The expertise in cybersecurity, that's one of the huge gaps, because people are focused, especially in our environment, get the job done, this is the task at hand, and yeah, do some kind of, whatever. So that's one thing, let's say the capability of people in terms of technical terms for cybersecurity, that's one thing. And another thing is really the purchasing of components. So now we have things like s.r.o coming in place, so certain products will have an increased quality. I agree with Ilja. For me, cybersecurity is a part of quality. Yeah, it's like base quality. It's like, we'd stick to the car example. Would you buy now a car without ABS, ESP, and so on? Probably not. Yeah, you wouldn't buy it. But it took years to develop, and the market evolved in there. And now we have this thing that we have certain products which have increased capabilities. Some have better ones, some have not so good ones, and it will take time. So people are struggling what to buy. And in our facilities, I mean, if I take a look at our machinery construction, we use all of them. Yeah, Siemens, ABB, Beckhoff, Honeywell, yeah, whatever. But people tend to stick to those suppliers. They will not switch to different platforms, I guess. Yeah, so it will be a race. So what to buy and which criteria, and people are really lost. Yeah, we just had discussions also with products, and they were like, yeah, there's a customer, and exactly that case. There was an insecure protocol, and he was going through, then we took like IEC for components, and he could look at the first two requirements. I cannot do that, the protocol is so unsecure that's never be solved. But then I said, yeah, but then, I mean, then that's the requirement that it's interoperable, so you have to implement it like that. Maybe you think of other measures on top. But this is what I mean, it's taking really long time, so those are gaps, what to buy. And I think, because the car is, by the way, not a good example, because a car is produced, then it's there, and yes, if the component is broken, then there is a big recall. But now for cybersecurity, we talk about this ecosystem, you push it out to the customer, and you have to keep it under control for the next couple of years until you say, this is end of life of the product, yeah? And yes, there are some tweaks, about, yeah, we support it like that, we do it like that. And that's, I think, what people underestimate, because it's not only that suppliers or manufacturers of products have to do that, but the people buying and integrating and operating those, they have that also keep in mind and have to take a look, who is it done, yeah? And I don't want to talk about all those transferships about I buy a product from Honeywell, which is then put into a machine, which is then put to another one, and you have all those legal things going on, and then it's really, and then people start to hide. No, I'm not responsible, because that's not the one who sold it to me. Okay, so that's quite will be interesting to see and observe.
Thank you. All right, so we got a few minutes left. So what I want to do is finish with the questions here to talk about the future. Let's assume we're getting towards this implementation. So I'm going to ask each of you a different question about the future. So I'm going to start with Lukasz here. So we have 18 months left before s.r.o is implemented. What if we fail to adapt all these products?
We cannot fail. Okay, we have not so much time. European Commission is working on is finalizing their work on the final guide, implementation guide for s.r.o. It will help us understand, all of us understand the main obligations. So this will be very helpful. But the key challenge are the detailed requirements for product properties. We all are waiting for the harmonized standards. Yeah, it's a challenge for us. How to be prepared? Okay, we can manage secure by design, because we know what means secure by design, secure development life cycle. but how to manage essential cybersecurity requirements related to product properties. What means protect the confidentiality? What this means for firewalls, what this means for other products, especially those who are in the important and critical categories where we have to follow vertical standards, but there is no vertical standards. And maybe we will need to redesign our product to be ready in December 2027. So how to redesign if we are still waiting for the standards, for the detailed requirements. But I'm quite sure that we will be ready, all, not only Honeywell, all we will be ready. We are all in the same boat, in the same place, in the base one, but let's wait a second. All the European standardization organizations are working on those standards. Those standards maybe are not the best, especially when you look at the IT-centric standards, which we cannot use in OT environment. That's why there is a work on the European version of the 62443-4-1 and -4-2, not to create European version to be different than the global version, than the IEC or ISA. No, to help manufacturers, OT product manufacturers, to be ready before December 11, 2027. So there is a lot of work. I think that till the end of this year, we will know all of the standards, then we can prepare. But I'm sure that all of you who are here, you are using 62443 standards. If you are using, so take a smile. You are almost ready with the CRA, especially from the secure development lifecycle processes, from the component requirements. If you are using, there is no idea. As Petr mentioned, from the 62443, from the CRA perspective, there is no requirement and won't be no requirements related to security levels. There is misunderstanding in the internet. Oh, for CRA you have to your product have to meet SL3 or SL4. No, it could be SL1. CRA has a risk-based approach. So you are analyzing which of the requirements are necessary for your product to mitigate the risk associated with your product and product security context. That's why there is no strict requirement to follow SL1, 2, 3, or 4. It's your business decision, it's your analysis, so I think that there will be no problem, especially because European Union gives a freedom to us to do this risk assessment. There is no strict common methodology we have to use. We are responsible for analyzing risk associated with our products, and then, based on these risks, do our processes and products. So keep smiling, and we will be ready. Next year, we will discuss where we are in 6 months before December.
All right, Martin, what should organizations invest in right now to get up to speed?
Well, hopefully you've invested already, so otherwise it would be quite late. I think invest really in agility and speed. Yeah, we can discuss all day long about this and that, but really get things starting. And if you observe that there are certain gaps and you think, we maybe have no progress or really slow progress, I mean, you can reach out to regulators, if we talk about those ones. You can try to approach companies supporting you, whether it's being consultants, or you reach out to the leverage you already have and persons working in your company. Because I think we have so many people in there, whether they're being in IT or OT, they can support, work together and get things done. And this is what we should invest, like open collaboration, and really turn it down in chunks, yeah, and start moving. And The good thing also is if you already have something in place and say, yeah, it's done, then, well, you don't need further investments. You need constant investment anyway. So you should definitely not cut your budgets for IT. Yeah, you should at least keep it. We could discuss about the percentile things, but that's about my answer about that one.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Ilja, all of this discussion about product vendors makes me think, what about the relationship between asset owners and vendors in terms of procurement? How do you see this regulation changing that?
It's changing, maybe not so fast as it should be, but it's leading to higher cooperation, yes, and it leads to the higher trust. So trust between vendors. We have a supply chain attacks, right? So there. It's not a legal issue that somewhere in the contract, is something written, security clauses, security annexes, properly done SLAs. All these things now coming into the play. It means that what it is bringing, slowly but surely, slowly that I would love to have it. But it's bringing stronger cooperation, higher trust between vendors, which are verified, and at the best legally undermined, covered by proper cybersecurity annexes with the proper clauses. The whole world needs more cooperation, right? The whole world needs it. So with that, and with higher trust, between suppliers, it is key thing to change. Procurement requirements itself, right, needs to be properly defined. They are clear, right? So it means it's clear, 100% clear, absolutely, that the best position to implement cybersecurity requirements is on the beginning, during the contract negotiation. Every time afterwards, it's more expensive, it's more difficult to implement security annex. So to have a properly defined security annex traced, based on the type of the relationship, traced to the proper legislation, is a key. So to have nicely prepared legally security annexes, this is very important. Not like this is a legal issue, this is procurement department issue. This is a key, and this is changing, slowly but changing. Cybersecurity itself is framed. It is framed, by these legal contracts with suppliers. It is a second part of the coin. And we must turn it, and show it as well. Don't put, and transport that issue, only to legal department. Security managers, asset operators, people who maintaining systems should know what for what vendors are legally responsible. Should know, what they can do, what they can enforce to them. Should know which RTOs, RPOs, MTDs, sometimes called MAO, maximum acceptable outage, which are defined in the contract, what they can enforce towards vendors, and then they should, properly measure it and enforce it via common trust, that it is really like that. So the procurement itself and supplier security is a key topic, to strengthen, all of us here in that hall, and our companies between each other. It's second part of the coin and very important.
Thank you. Yeah, and last question for Petr. Regulation sometimes means enforcement. What do you see that regulators would focus on in enforcement early on with this regulation?
Yeah, I can speak of the Czech regulator here. But I believe the approach would be same across the Europe. The regulators will focus on ensuring that the organizations are on the right path. So they are aware of the regulation, they are aware that they are regulated, and they made the first steps towards implementing the regulation, meaning that they know what service is regulated, what critical assets are those services depending on. They made their risk assessment as the regulations is a risk-based approach, as we said earlier, and that the company has a plan to mitigate those risks. So a plan to implement the security measures. So I would not imagine the regulators coming this year and fining the organization for not having particular security measures implemented, but probably the regulator will come and say, hey, what's the track you are on, and do you need some help?
All right, thank you. Well, excellent discussion. Thank you, everybody, for your inputs. I want to sum up for everybody here. Hopefully, you're aware of these regulations and their impending implementation. But what I hope you heard today is that these regulations are not just checklist exercises. They're not just about compliance. If you're going to do it properly, like Ilja said, this is all about making your critical infrastructure secure. It's all about making products that can be secure so that when they're implemented, the asset owner can be secure. But the big point is that, as is mentioned several times, this is all about a risk-based approach. And this is where ISA IEC 62443 really comes in, because it is the only cybersecurity standard that actually takes a risk-based approach to implementing security. And if organizations properly understand that approach, and I think if they start early, like Martin said, they should be already doing this, but get started, put the effort into it, focus on resilience and focus on making sure that they're secure with a risk-based approach, I think we should be in good shape, and the regulatory approach should be successful.
And now, highlights from the keynote address by Mark Harbord, Chief Information Security Officer for the UK Parliament.
So for me, I'm s.r.o UK Parliament. I've worked in security for about 27 years. I've worked at Parliament for 18 years. I used to head up the third line support teams, moved into what was ICT security, I guess, about 2012, and built the team up and moved on from there, really. So in looking at resilience, we're in a really interconnected world. You know, you don't need me to tell you that. Systems and services are an absolute central, fundamental part of that. We're also in a really dangerous world, right? You know, the threats are real. Loss and compromise of services can have a direct impact on many things. You know, national security, economic continuity, democratic resilience, my sort of area, and geopolitical stability. So really having resilience in place just is a massively important thing, never more so than today. Having those protections in place, having good incident response plans, well-tested plans, yeah, that's fine, but you need more than that really nowadays. So, this whole cybersecurity thing, it's very much no longer purely an IT, OT issue. It's way wider than that. You know, this is now a board level responsibility, which is definitely a good thing, I think. You know, when you look around what we're moving from technical security. Technology cannot protect everything by itself. I mean, apart from anything else, you've got humans. Humans will always take the shortcut. They will do the easy thing. They'll work around controls. It's not saying that's a bad thing, or you know that humans are a weak part of that, but it is human nature. They will fall for things. They will be tricked. And a lot of this stuff around technical security really just goes to show that actually education, awareness, and thinking about stuff from a human factors point of view is really, really important. We're moving from compliance checklists that have their place, certainly. But when you're looking at assurance in the wider picture, really doing something once doesn't really work. You know, things change. You know, there was a very interesting talk yesterday about drift. It's exactly that, right? You know, the moment you The moment you launch something, it's probably not going to stay the same. Perimeter defense, we're definitely moving away from perimeter defense in this new cloud world, really. And those interconnects, really, I guess you could say now that the perimeter is the entire world, it's worldwide. And voluntary standards, kind of already said, really, the hard ones often don't get done. They're not the priority. You do the low-hanging fruit, and then you move on. So, and then we're moving to, operational resilience. This is really around maintaining services as a bigger picture rather than just keeping your system up and running. That resilience bit is so key in this world. We're moving to that mandatory governance so that all areas are covered, not just the low-hanging fruit. And supply chain assurance, it's way bigger than just at an organisation level. It's substantially easier to go in at the bottom and take out a small service provider or something like that and, get into systems and that wider chain. You will hear me talk about supply chain a lot today. It's something that has burnt me on many occasions, so it's a bit of a soapbox for me. But really, ultimately, nowadays, we're all each other's supply chain, and I think that's something that we have to remember. And then we're moving to a strategic security policy. It's more than just having an operational policy. It's the bigger picture about how security in the whole works from a resilience and everything else point of view. And really, you have to face the fact that cybersecurity is now very much a geopolitical issue. So talking about the threat, so cyber is really cheap and easy, especially in the age of AI. Initial access is really easy to get. We really see we're moving from a world of where people break in to now where people log in. They steal creds, they steal sessions, they'll get in through legitimate looking accounts and what have you. So really that access, those tools to be able to further these things, piece of cake really. It doesn't take a huge brain, it doesn't take a lot of money. And really, when you look at stuff, across the whole world, across all industries, we're not very good at doing the basics. So things like secure by design, patching, life cycle, just multi-factor, decent passwords and that sort of stuff. We're still really bad at that. And that really very much is, various papers talk about that sort of getting rid of that sort of 90% of attacks if we actually did that. So the key threat categories really, we're talking around sort of state-sponsored cyber operations. Different states have different goals, plainly. Some want to destroy, some want to steal or use espionage. Some want to just learn what's going on. Some want to influence, certainly from a democracy point of view, we see that. And some just want to play power games. They just want to show that they're really good and they are to be feared. Ransomware, as ever, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, really. This is a 24/7 managed service now. It's big business. It makes billions of pounds a year for people. And those, when you look, and there's various YouTube things where people are talking to ransomware providers and service operators. It's a really professional business, really professional. Sometimes I think perhaps on the wrong side of the fence, really. But, it's a really professional and solid service. We could learn a lot from that, to be fair. And we see a lot of things like double extortion now, where not only can you not get into your own data, but then the threat is that will then be published. And that could be PII, could be sensitive conversations within a business. It could be your secrets from your business point of view. There's a lot, again, in the ransomware world around supply chain targeting or going for MSPs or something like that. So you can hoover up a load of information all at the same time and actually make a lot of money from that. We've seen increasive attacks on public services. Certainly in the UK, we've seen local councils, we've seen schools, we've seen healthcare, and that leads to all sorts of things, so healthcare disruption, municipal paralysis, a wider economic impact, especially to customers of some of those areas, right? So if you're on benefits and you live on those benefits and you have no other way of getting money, if you suddenly can't get to your money because the council can't pay you, it's a huge thing. And that really does and can, and we see, lead to a bigger erosion in public confidence. We're talking about hybrid warfare. We're definitely the age of hybrid warfare, where there's a combination of kinetic attacks, cyber attacks, information warfare. It's a really blended approach now, and it's really interesting to watch how that is emerging in various global theatres across the world. Hacktivism, hacktivisms can be state puppets, definitely. It's a really useful way of doing stuff from a deniable point of view. But often hacktivists have a cause. Some of you probably remember the old anonymous days. There was a lot of personal feelings in that and personal reasons why a lot of people in Anonymous were taking on and doing particular things. We've got the supply chain compromise. There should be a drinking game every time I mention it, really. But, supply chains, it's often the weak point in the chain. These are people who don't necessarily have security or a good IT team or anything. So, we see a lot of that from almost like an insider threat point of view, but not necessarily insiders. OT tax, I'll come on to a bit more about that shortly. And then sort of really AI-enabled cyber operations. When you look at the journey of Gen AI over the last very short period of time, it makes attacks really easy. There are scanning tools out there which are 24/7 looking for vulns, looking for ways around those and exploiting those. So really that's a threat which I don't think, from an industry point of view, we've really got our head round quite yet. And really, the sum up, really, Europe faces a persistent multi-domain cyber pressure. And it's a world where attacks are increasingly continuous rather than just episodic. It's an ongoing thing all the time. What are the intentions from a threat act point of view? We see a lot of espionage at work. That's probably one of our biggest things. This is just states trying to understand the direction of policy, of decisions, where we're going. Luckily, we don't, touch wood, see so much in the way of infrastructure disruption, but there are certainly, that's a really good way of making a point. Again, kind of links back into that ransomware world, really, I think. Political influence, it's kind of linked to espionage, but it's a bit more of that sort of getting into people's hearts and minds and being able to shift a political conversation. And we see that from people coming up with fake campaigns, deep fakes, and that sort of stuff. We're just trying to change the wider perception of the electorate against some of those political figures. Strategic prepositioning, I think, is one of those things which has been very underestimated over the last few years. We saw the, 9 telcos in the States from Volt Typhoon being sort of effectively completely owned from that point of view. And that prepositioning of just getting in there early, being really quiet and sneaky, is definitely a useful thing for things that might happen in the future. You just never know, right? So prepositioning is definitely a thing, and that's actually really hard to spot, because effectively you land, you're in, and then you're quiet. You don't do anything. And then perhaps from a more business point of view, intellectual property theft is quite a big deal. It's kind of similar to espionage, but actually there is a more business-based thing here, right? So it can cost money, you lose secrets, other people can start building things. So just delving in on the OT stuff, right? I am not the expert in the room on that, plainly, so I'm not trying to teach anyone to suck eggs. So this is very much a CISO view from my world into OT. I haven't done OT for a long time, since like power electronics at university, and that was quite a long time ago. So the high-risk areas kind of that I see from this point of view around energy grids, water systems, people need energy and water, for our society now. So, those are quite important. I know from some of my contacts around the nuclear industries, there's still a stack of stuff there which is accidentally or deliberately exposed to the internet, which really probably shouldn't be. Water systems, we've seen a stack of those over years where people have TeamViewer on their system or something like that, and people connect and change the chlorine levels in water and bits and pieces. Manufacturing, plainly, really important. Everyone needs stuff. So manufacturing is a key area from that point of view. Transport, very much that railways, aircraft, and those sort of areas of the world. Again, really important from a sort of an OT / critical national infrastructure point of view. Healthcare, definitely, right? So we've not yet, I don't think, seen any particularly large attacks from an OT point of view against medical machines in a wide context. Certainly, being in hospital, which I'm in quite a lot, I see a lot of those machines which are definitely way out of date and are doing all sorts of bits and pieces, plugged into a Cat 5 socket, Cat 6 socket, whatever. I dread to think what those controls are and what could happen in those sort of spaces. And then we got that communication stuff, right? So I guess this is probably more C&I largely than OT, but nonetheless, this is a really important area. We've seen that Volt Typhoon stuff, and it's definitely an issue. From concerns point of view, again, not. For this is my view into the world. So things like legacy systems, right? And that really does cover from IT as well. We fight legacy tech every day. People are really good at putting something in. It works. Leave it alone. Don't poke it. Fine. And I think that's a worldwide and industry-wide problem. A lot, like I said, that internet exposed OT, which perhaps someone's told you must do, or you need to keep your business going. Not necessarily a good thing. Weak segmentation. Again, this is something that's quite close to my heart around our OT estate at work, and that third-party compromise. Again, I've seen several attacks which has taken out someone who is an OT provider and understander, which doesn't really get modern cybersecurity. So it's definitely one of those sort of sleeping problems which will bite you at some point. And really, when you look at it, operational disruption can create real-world societal impact. It can influence a population. It can reduce or destroy trust in governments. Imagine that chaos across a country if the internet dropped or there was no water or no power. That would all hell would break loose now in our world where everything, from our fridges to heating systems to doorbells, let alone getting our news feeds and bits and pieces. Without the internet, even our cars, there's a stack of stuff there that would be very, very difficult. So, hence some regulation in this space. And really, so why? Kind of already said that from a standards point of view, a voluntary standards point of view, it's becoming more insufficient over time. People will do that easy stuff. They won't necessarily do the hard stuff. That's just human nature, and it's just our lives, right, really. Supply chain become attack services. They are easy targets. There is a point there of making sure that people do the right things. And really, it's the wider risk to society outside organisation has got real. So that systemic cyber risk has needed some intervention. So what is that result? The journey to sort of cyber resilience, the objectives being improving visibility. So that is improving visibility as we're all colleagues, we're all organisations that need to know what's going on. You need the bigger picture. An attack against, for instance, my parliament is just as important for other parliaments around the world to understand. So that visibility of what's going on what the attackers might be, what their modus operandi are, all that sort of stuff. It also helps out with that visibility bit around getting help. So certainly from a national supplier's point of view, if we see something happening across either our space or even into the government space, the NCSC, our National Cybersecurity Centre, will help out. Keeping that quiet isn't going to help because you just try and deal with something in yourself and you're not necessarily going to fix it. The next objective really is around increasing accountability, right? This is moving that IT, OT security responsibility from the nerds in the basement up to being seen at board level, so that board level understand what the threat is, what the threat to their businesses are, what their threat to their bottom line is, what the threats to their functions are, really. And that means that they can, and they have kind of a duty, I guess, to fund that, to support it, to understand it and do some wider supportive thing, and not just think that security is this really annoying thing that just basically stops people working. You need to understand the threats and the risks around that. It's all around strengthening resilience. Kind of already said that quite a lot, but actually, like I say, just beating the baddies off the network isn't necessarily going to do it. If you lose your entire virtual server stack or something like that, it's going to take a stack to rebuild, and you need to be able to do that, and you need to test it. Harmonising standards. I think it was a Dutch author that wrote back in '89 around the good thing about standards, that there are so many to choose from, right? That is absolutely a thing we see. There are loads of standards. They're all different, but kind of similar, but with different areas. And I think the objectives of actually having less standards so it's easier to people to understand what they need to follow is quite a biggie. And then the last bit probably is around reducing the systemic vulnerability. So that's really kind of ties into resilience, but actually it's the bigger picture outside an organisation, industry-wide. So regulation really is intending to shape security behaviour rather than security behaviour being its own thing in the background. So, a really rough guide to EU legislation. Right, I'm not the expert in this, so I'm literally just going to kind of list these and go through it. So we have currently across EU, in the EU space, we've got NIS2, the core cyber resilience framework. We've got DORA, the Digital Operation Resilience Act, the c.r.o, Cyber Resilience Act, and the EU Act on Cybersecurity and AI. These are really key things. From a UK point of view, however, we don't have anything. When we went through Brexit, whenever that was, 6+ years ago, we were transposed NIS basically into our law. It's not actually updated since then, right? So all these things around risk management, threat and risk-based stuff, incident reporting, supply chain security, governance accountability, regulatory supervision, kind of is stuck in stasis from a few years ago. So the plan is to bring in this UK Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill. This would update the UK's cybersecurity legislation, covers critical national infrastructure, and it basically builds on that NIS that we picked up and inherited when we left the EU, and it extends to the whole of the UK. It's very much catching up to where you guys are now, really. So there's the objectives of that are modernising the UK regulations. It is got a focus on critical national infrastructure. It improves that incident visibility, the stuff kind of already talked about there. And it brings in the regulatory scope of data centres, large load controllers, which basically means energy suppliers, and things connected to the grid, managed service providers, and suppliers that are critical to a regulated organisation's ability to provide its essential service. So this really does start to build up into where the rest of the EU is going. And again, core point is around strengthening that sort of supply chain resilience. So, and when you look at it, the UK and EU cyber strategies are increasingly convergent. We share the same philosophy. It's all going in the same direction, which is kind of logical because that's where we need to be going. So where is it? So this bill was first thought up in 2024, and it was introduced into the House of Commons towards the beginning of November in 2025. It had its second reading on the 6th of January, which actually is remarkably quick for the UK Parliament. And it's been through committee stage earlier February this year. All pretty speedy, actually, so someone's taking it seriously. Its report stage and reading, I believe, happened on Tuesday, though I haven't actually chased that up. So I am hopeful that by the end of this parliamentary session, effectively once it's gone through the House of Commons and everyone's commented on it, it goes into the House of Lords, they sort of red pen it and make some adjustments and agree or disagree. Then it goes back to their Commons and then eventually it becomes a law. So I'm kind of hoping that probably by Christmas, bear in mind we've got summer recess and other holidays and stuff coming up, we should have actually something that moves from a bill to an act and therefore becomes law. It's not before time, to be fair. So, if we look at some of the sort of emerging strategic themes across this space, there's very much that resilience over prevention. We're all going to face and be involved in a successful cyber attack. It's not if, it's definitely when, and it's also more about how you recover and how you are prepared for that. So that's definitely the move, which is really, really important because we've been through a couple of big cyber attacks. It's a really painful process if you're not prepped for that. It's just not a bundle of laughs. Really, cyber is very much becoming a national security thing now. It's gone are the days where it's just like IT, OT in the background and no one really cares about it. People actually get that it's a bigger deal now from a national security point of view. Supply chain security, again, not going to apologise for talking about that. It keeps me awake at night. It's a big thing. The executive accountability, right? This is, again, it's moving away from those technical teams from an accountability point of view. Not to say that the boards won't be advised and listened to by the technical teams. I mean, it would be horrific if executives started making random decisions by themselves. We need that two-way support, but ultimately, that accountability has to be at board level so they can see the bigger picture and they can see what's going on. Infrastructure survivability, again, right? So this is all about how you do the right things low down, you get your resilience in place, how you are able to keep going. And that infrastructure really talks around probably the CNI, that national infrastructure sort of space. And the strategic autonomy, which is a slightly bizarre but great phrase really, which is around everyone's got to head in the right direction, but everyone is not the same. So it's that common goal that we're all working towards, but we're all working towards it from our own industries and our own ways. And really, I think the direction here is that cyber legislation is increasingly functioning as a security policy, which is probably quite a good thing. Certainly, in my world, I have a very interesting customer base where a couple of thousand of them, although they're on my network and use my services, I literally have no power over them because they're not employees. I can't tell them not to do something. Well, I can tell them not to do something. They don't listen. And I have no way of punishing them. I can't kick them off the network because that's not democratic. So that security policy, as it works through, legislation gives me something that I can beat them with and say, actually, you know what, you've got to do this because it's the law. All right, we'll see how much difference that makes, but hopefully it will. So, kind of summing up then really, where I see the future European cyber landscape going. The likely developments in my thing from about a month of looking at this sort of stuff, much stronger enforcement of legislation and controls, increased OT and, to be fair, IT regulation. I think that's a good thing, again, from a supplier point of view, from an infrastructure point of view, tightening stuff up so we do it better, just stops those easy attacks, those drive-bys and that sort of stuff. There will be definitely an increase in AI security stuff being built into legislation. I think, again, like EU, way ahead of the game on this, but from certainly from a UK point of view, we've not really thought about AI from a legislation point of view and how it affects other infrastructures and other legislation yet. I think that's coming. I think it needs to be pretty sharpish, to be fair. Mandatory software transparency. So this is very much about having sort of a high-level assurance of what software is doing, how it's built. Again, sort of comes back into supply chain that we're all using software which is safe from source. It's been designed properly and that sort of stuff. Resilience testing, like I say, being prepared is the most important thing. You've got to be able to understand what's going on. You've got to be able to understand that if you lose this particular bit of infrastructure, this system service, you know what you're going to do rather than start just doing knee-jerk panic things because that's never going to end well. And there's undoubtedly going to be a greater public-private coordination because actually none of us can do this by ourselves. It has to be that public sector and private sector partnership to make sure that we get the best out of this. And I think that the trend here in my field, my personal field, is that cyber resilience and this sort of legislation will probably become as foundational as financial regulation as we are now, which is something we're way off at the moment, I think. So, final thought, really. I would say that Europe is no longer treating cybersecurity as a technical issue to be delegated. It's now treated as a strategic resilience challenge, and that affects sovereignty, economic continuity, democratic stability, and national security itself, which is a really good thing, and it's probably a long time coming. Thank you very much.
As the leading professional society for automation, ISA hosts a number of conferences and events to bring this awesome community together. Coming up, our flagship event, the ISA Automation Summit and Expo, on September 27 to 29 in Orlando. This event has something for everyone and is our fastest growing gathering, with over 630 attendees and 65 vendors last year. Whatever you're looking for, you can find it all at ASE. Visit isa.org/events to learn more. This has been Podomation, brought to you by the International Society of Automation. Thanks for listening, and remember to subscribe and review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps people to find our content. Podomation is produced by me, Liz Neiman, and Morgan Fora at ISA. Our music is by Mixer Drummer and has been licensed from Pond 5.